Hello, my darlings, and welcome back to Radio Wasteland, the best in paranormal talk radio. I'm your host, Chauncey Allworth. This is my co-host, Kara.
Hello.
Kara Kittrick, do you have any news for us there
Yes,
today?
I do. So, first of all, Rudy Giuliani, Donald Trump's lawyer and Attorney General under Ronald Reagan, retweeted a conspiracy theory about the death of Seth Rich last week, pointing to, quote-unquote, some nagging coincidences. Naturally, the conspiracy theory that Hillary Clinton murdered Seth Rich is supported by no evidence whatsoever, but it is a very convenient thing for people to believe. Imran Khan, Prime Minister of Pakistan, has once again threatened India with nuclear war over control of Kashmir. Pakistan and India have, of course, been squabbling over that particular piece of land since the partition of India and Pakistan in the late 1940s. In giant reptile news, geneticist Professor Neil Gemmell of New Zealand has completed his DNA analysis of Loch Ness and is excited to announce that he has a new leading theory for the cause of the Loch Ness Monster phenomenon. He did not, however, explain what this theory was, saying only that it would be unveiled at an event later this year. Oh, Neil, you're such a tease. Finally, a man crossed the English Channel on a flying jet-powered hoverboard, signaling once and for all that we are living in the future. Of course, the most important application of this technology, hoverboard jousting, has not yet become widespread. Back to you, Chauncey.
Okay, man. Hillary Clinton murdered Seth Rich. Who's Seth Rich? Should I know about this?
Well, you mentioned it a couple of times on the show, just in passing as a conspiracy theory that is ridiculous. Like
it's a part of Pizzagate.
It comes from the same, general area.
I see. Yeah.
But the idea, I think, is that Seth Rich was a DNC staffer who people like to believe leaked all of the emails about to WikiLeaks rather than, the Russians getting a hold of them.
Right. I do remember this.
And so the idea is that instead of being killed by burglars, he was, killed by assassins. From, the Democratic National Convention. They called up their assassins.
Right, totally. Because...
I wonder if the assassins are like, when you go to volunteer for a campaign, like, some people are stuffing envelopes, some people are going door to door, and, like, a couple people, they just hand you a silenced 9mm, and
right.
Just like, you'll need to bump this guy off.
Right. Part of me thinks it's ridiculous that they would have assassins, and part of me thinks it makes a lot of sense. So I'm not really sure. I mean, does the potential ownership of assassins really kind of just come down to a certain amount of money? Once you have a certain amount of money, you potentially could have assassins.
Yeah, I guess it's just so hard to get away with murder, in 2019.
Yeah, especially in the public eye.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, assuming you murder someone important.
Right.
Like, if you shoot a homeless guy, like, they're not even going to investigate, so help yourself.
Right.
But,
this isn't Christopher Walken in the 70s, man. This is like the day and age of the media.
Right, exactly. So, I really don't think, like, no matter how much money you have, I really don't think you can get away with actually killing someone important.
Oh, right.
But I don't know. That's
what do you
just
make
me.
of this India-Pakistan thing? In my opinion, I really kind of see them as really just kind of mouthing off to one another because they know that the entire world will rain on them like hellfire.
Oh, yeah. So I don't think they're serious, but I think, they're kind of like the nuclear war threats are kind of new. Like that's, in the last few years. And so I think the danger is that eventually, like, maybe the populace of each country is going to, a certain percentage is going to be like, yeah, nuclear war, we like the sound of that.
Right.
And eventually you're going to get a leader in power who is crazy and is, ready to deliver on that promise. So,
yeah,
it's a risk. It's probably not a great thing to, like, bring into the discourse.
Right, and when you're dealing with, potentially religious zealots, it seems like every country,
right, yeah,
from the United States to some country you've never heard of. We all seem to have some sort of religious
right. Everyone has
zealots
religious zealots, except like I don't know, Denmark.
Yeah, totally.
I
it's
think,
been outlawed there.
Right. I think like their religious zealots are just the guy who gives you some, cookies when you walk into church, and like you're the only one there, and he's like, "Oh,
can you believe this guy handed me a pamphlet?" Yeah.
Right. That's their religious zealots.
And then Loch Ness DNA, all I got to say about this one is that when a scientist discovers something, they put it out in a paper. They don't wait till they can charge for it, so forget this guy.
Yeah. It's weird because he is an actual scientist.
Not anymore.
Yeah.
No.
I'm inclined to agree.
Yeah.
But, scientists really don't get paid a lot, so.
Yeah, I guess that's true, He's just trying to get his money.
I can't blame him for, prostituting his intellectual knowledge to the...
Totally. If I had any, I would too.
Yeah.
And then the English Channel hoverboard, hecka cool. I've seen the footage of this thing. This is the second time he tried it. He crashed halfway through last time.
Right.
But because he had to refuel, he couldn't make it all the way across with the power that he had. But he only had to refuel once to make it all the way across.
Now, it's worth noting, like, when I say hoverboard, I think a lot of people think of, like, hoverboards that you see people on that are, kind of Segway-ish. They hover a few millimeters off the ground. But no, he's like the Silver Surfer.
This guy's just standing on a drone.
Yeah, basically.
Standing on a quadcopter drone is
I mean, what this I don't know is. That... Did it have rotors?
I think it's a quadcopter drone, yeah.
I would be terrified of standing on a platform that was, like, ringed with spinning blades.
I don't know. I might be wrong on that one. You can't hold me to that one.
Well, you might be right, but that is horrifying if that's the case.
All right, we got a few minutes up until our first break, and our guest, Myron Curtis, we're going to be talking about virtual reality. But up until then, I've known you for a long time, and I kind of figured, and Jared, too, I've known for a long time. I kind of figured I'd already told you all my stories, but I got a funny one. We were talking about how during the commercial breaks we need to play a woman screaming, and I was talking about how a peahen, like a lady peacock, when it makes its little noise, it sounds like a woman screaming help. It's sure. Very disturbing. So after my mom died, I go and live with my aunt and uncle.
Okay.
And I'm living across the hall from my cousin. And me and my cousin are close. We play in bands at the time and stuff. And I'm laying in my room, and I hear him call me, and he's just all, "Chance." And I'm all like, "What?" And he doesn't answer. And finally I hear him call again. He's all, "Chance." And I'm all like, "What?" And he doesn't answer. And he yells it again, "Chance." And finally I get up and I go into his room and I throw the door open, and I'm just all, "What?" And he's all, "Man, I didn't say anything."
Oh, God.
And so from outside his window, the neighbors have llamas, and you can hear this llama in a field going, "George," fully yelling my name. And I'm all, oh my God,
I was ready to be like, that is some Haunting of Hill House level.
Yeah. Well, it was
terror.
The haunting llama of Hill House. Yeah.
Yeah. Well, that must have been what was plaguing the Crane family that whole time.
Absolutely.
There's just a pack of llamas outside on a field. They didn't notice.
That's true. There's a whole world of mystery and conspiracy here to unravel. The screaming peahen and the llama yelling shots.
Yeah, the bent neck llama.
All right, we're coming up on our first break here, and when we come back, we have our guest Myron Curtis, and we're going to be talking about virtual realities and their effect on our future and on the current world that we're in. So come on back. You're listening to Radio Wasteland. Visit Radio Wasteland at Instagram at instagram.com/Radio Wasteland. All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland and our guest, Myron Curtis. Myron, do we have you there with us?
Hello?
Hello, Myron.
Yeah.
How are you doing?
I'm doing great. How are you doing?
Not bad. Are you back in paradise, or are you still in expatriate, or are you becoming an expatriate?
Well, we have a little cabin in Upper Peninsula, Michigan, and we're staying there for now.
Well, it sounds
probably permanently, but we don't know.
I see. Okay, so basically, well, for our audience's understanding, you had this website, but your servers went down when Paradise went down. Is that correct?
Correct. I just now got them back up on a server on a rack in Phoenix that a company called The Dimension Beyond is actually running for me.
Okay, and why don't you explain to us, to get started and to give you some background, what this site is?
All right. A virtual world is like a three-dimensional website, and you explore it with an avatar, which is kind of like a cartoon character of yourself, although you can use other forms as well. And you can build all kinds of things there, including buildings and roads and stores, or you can go off the charts and build spaceships and, strange virtual worlds that couldn't possibly exist in reality. So it's a pretty amazing technology. It started really coming into its own with the advent of Second Life back around 2006.
Yeah, I remember Second Life, and Second Life being big at the time, and there was a lot of talk of economies even going on within these worlds.
Sure.
Oh, yeah. And there still is. I'm actually working on trying to get a real-world economy going in it using maybe something like PayPal micropayments so that people can, don't have to think about how much their coinage in world is actually worth compared to coinage in the real world.
I see. But when we say an economy is going on, are we talking about, buying new skins for your character? Or are we talking about actually like buying services and buying real world services and goods?
Both.
Both.
And mostly right now, people are buying and selling virtual goods, but there's certainly no reason why you couldn't upload a three-dimensional version of a real-world product, including photographs, and then people can explore those and decide to buy them, and they could get a virtual copy, and they could get a real-world copy. For example, buying clothes. You could go in with an avatar that is built to scale of you, and you go in, you try on clothes, and you can take a 360 view of yourself in these clothes. And if you buy something and it comes shipped to your door, it fits.
Yeah. I definitely like the idea, and I get the idea, but as a person who the camera adds 10 pounds on top of the 10 pounds that it already added, I'm not sure I would like shopping for my virtual guy.
You could sneak around and do it.
Yeah, that's funny.
You could have the hot version of you under your name account, and then you could have an alternate you with the sizes that are actual.
Right. That's what I need. What I need. So it's like a funhouse mirror. I can switch to what I should, what I should look like.
Your ideal self.
Right. While I'm laughing about this and joking about this, of course, we are seeing virtual reality expand into all sorts of aspects, for people who are maybe viewing this more like a video game and less like a tool. I'm sure they've all seen Marvel movies, and when Tony Stark grabs the ship diagnostics and opens it up and looks around at it and stuff like that, this is basically the future of what virtual reality might actually be, or at least augmented reality.
Right, and the goggles of today are rapidly shrinking. They'll be about the size of eyeglasses with audio inputs. You may actually have hypnotic gloves that actually sense your hand movements, things like that. We already have the controllers with Oculus Rift and things. So that is becoming the reality. And in fact, the next step beyond virtual reality and augmented reality will be what I call integrated reality, where you really can't tell the difference.
Right.
And Elon Musk just announced that his company is developing a brain-computer interface that will allow you to have access to artificial intelligence on the go.
Right.
So it's very possible that you could also have virtual world projections on the go.
Yeah, that's wild. The scary thing is like the first people willing to try these things. It's like, but I guess money will do anything for people that are desperate. All right. So, what did it take for you to build this? I mean, was this a technology that you knew, or was this something you said, hey, I'm going to do this and I'm going to get these people to build it for me? Was it an investment project for you, or did you sit around and actually make this thing happen?
I was part of having it happen, but I didn't actually build it myself at first. What happened is I was asked by the college I was working for to go in and evaluate Second Life as an educational platform. And I was hooked immediately, and it took me 14 days to come up for air and say, I guess I better do some evaluation here. And I started the Darkstone Learning Center in Second Life, where I actually evaluated the different teaching tools that they had. Pretty good stuff. Then, around 2005, I started hearing rumors that somebody had reverse engineered and was creating an open source version of Second Life. Mm-hmm. And I jumped on that. It eventually became Open Simulator, which is recognized as an alternate to Second Life, and it's actually quite robust. And my virtual worlds are built on that platform.
I see.
I've actually modified the code somewhat to do the things I want and get rid of some of the things that they have in there. But on the whole, it's Open Simulator.
So you went into it with a focus on education.
Correct.
And
it's since evolved.
Right. But, what was the educational goal at the time? I mean, I can definitely see educational things for engineering and stuff like that, but I'm assuming that you went into it for, like, virtual classrooms and stuff like that?
Correct. Because online education in its most current form is really kind of lonely. I mean, you do have a chat and stuff with the other students and the instructor, but you lack that face-to-face quality and the ability to interact with other people in real time. So a virtual world is actually kind of a virtualized face-to-face classroom.
Right.
Which you could actually record and archive, and people could come back and look at it later. But you do have more opportunities for spontaneity in the classroom.
Yeah, and more, interaction. I don't know if it's my generation or if it's my imagination, but I have for doing this radio stuff and for doing what I do for a living, I mean, I do online advertising. I have a hard time communicating online through chat rooms and stuff like that. So I'm kind of interested in this. I wonder if I would be more apt to communicate like myself if I felt like I was communicating with somebody in front of me.
Yeah, but on steroids, because we have voice chat right now. Mm-hmm. Voice to text is being developed so that when you speak, somebody who doesn't want to use voice or can't, can have it translated directly into text, which allows our translation programs to deliver translations into at least 62 different languages from the text.
Right. Yeah.
So you can have subtitles. The real world.
Pardon me?
I said you could have subtitles, for instance, in the real world.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So you could be talking to somebody in China, you would hear them speaking in Chinese, but it would actually be displayed in text with the translation into English.
Yeah, and the sub is always better than the dub. Let's be clear
the
here.
Sub is better than the dub. That's funny.
But it also addresses a lot of accessibility issues that are becoming more prevalent, because with a lot of our veterans coming back from overseas, a lot of them have developed hearing problems from the percussions that they've experienced.
Not to belittle the things that they've gone through, but I played music for years, and I definitely have that. I can guarantee you my headphones are a whole lot louder than Kara's are right now. Because,
probably, yeah.
My family makes fun of me because they say they talk smack about me behind my back all the time, and I don't know, they might be.
Yeah. My grandparents are pretty much deaf. It would be pretty cool if they could hear me.
Yeah, totally.
Yeah, or at least know what you're saying.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, I've seen some apps that do augmented reality where they translate, let's say, signs when you're in another country, and it'll translate the language to your language, giving you directions and whatnot.
Right. Yeah. We have those on phones already, and we're porting that technology into virtual worlds and virtual reality in general, actually.
All right, we're coming up on break here. You're listening to Myron Curtis. We're talking about virtual realities. As cool as the effect on your voice sounds, it's a little creepy for the topic. We're going to have Jared try to get a better phone connection. And come on back. We're listening to Myron Curtis, and we're talking about virtual realities right here on Radio Wasteland.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, Miss Vicky Wills.
This is restless and smoke cigars, 'cause the very first shuttle to the planet Mars was a disco queen in 76. Castrates cows as she gets turkeys.
And don't forget to follow Radio Wasteland on Facebook at facebook.com/radiowasteland.us.
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We're talking to our guest, Myron Curtis, about virtual realities. A big part of this, as Kara was saying during the break, is really about what the future is. So maybe we should cover what's the current impact on let's say business of virtual reality. Where do we find that now in business?
Right now, it's primarily in marketing, but that's evolving rapidly, and with Elon Musk announcement about brain-computer interfacing and things like that, we could actually be looking at a point in time where we're projecting parts of a virtual world into your everyday consciousness. For example, you might see somebody that looks like they're standing right in front of you and talking to you who really isn't there. It's a projection into your mind.
I take 3 pills a day, so that doesn't happen.
Yeah, that's funny.
I like that too. But the possibilities are actually whatever you can imagine. In fact, in programming, which this is really all based on, we have adopted the engineers' wisdom that if you can dream it precisely enough, it can be built. And that's really what we're doing with virtual reality. It's really hard to imagine what somebody else is imagining. I know what I want, but somebody else might want a virtual dance club,
right?
And it's really hard to imagine. I could see, for example, one of the reasons I developed Virtual Worlds Grid is in the back of my mind I was kind of hoping that the users would spontaneously develop an in-world government that would act as a template we could use for real-world governments. All they wanted to do was play.
Yes, of course.
Which might be exactly what we really need in the real world.
Well, maybe the government at least needs to understand that we all want to do really is just play.
Yeah.
Pretty much, yeah.
We're monkeys on the playground.
I think we're more serious than that, but it was an eye-opener for me.
No, I meant we are, me and Chauncey. But
okay.
Just speaking for us.
Yeah.
You're different,
okay.
I'm sure.
So what you're saying is...
I don't know if I'm that much different.
So when you say that this is in marketing, I'm assuming that you're talking about virtual assistants and chatbots that are actually moving heads and interacting with you and mouthing the words and stuff like that.
Right, and a lot of them now are being driven by artificial intelligence. Actually,
Right.
It's reaching the point where I like to call them digital beings. And some of them are currently at that point where they can handle most things on their own, but they can actually call in to have a human representative merge with them and then learn from the interaction as the human deals with the problem the customer is experiencing or the opportunity that's arising. And we're seeing a lot of virtual projections being used in the stock market to try to mimic real-world situations in order to predict what's going to happen with the stocks later on down the road. But that's actually pretty private to the different companies. It's very
proprietary and hush-hush.
What's the word?
Yeah.
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 Yeah, they don't really want to share that information.
Well, an example of like that in the real world that we see on a regular basis is forgive my non-technical name for it, but the like noodle maps they show you for the weather for like when the hurricane's coming in, and they show you all the different paths it might potentially take.
Oh, yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
We can actually take that a step further. Say you're a gold mining company. With all the vibrations going on the Earth right now, we're taking that data and mapping the different densities of the materials inside of the Earth and becoming more and more precise. It'll actually reach the point where we can have a virtual projection of the Earth or maybe a piece of property and actually filter out all the different densities to see where the gold is.
Yeah, I used to have an office that I shared in a building, and another one of the companies in the office actually did like terrain mapping for the government and fire and stuff like that, where they would actually fly over and map it with drones and create 3D situations of the thing where they could remove the trees and see the terrain and sort of come up with expectations about the way fires would go and how they would stop them.
Correct. And they're using LiDAR now with satellites to create virtual images of the ground without the vegetation to find ancient structures.
Yeah, and that's definitely an interest of mine.
Yes.
Without a doubt, you know. Yeah. So what do you see for the future of this? You know, let's do this in steps. You know, where do you think we'll be in 5 years?
In 5 years, probably going to be more widespread adoption of virtual technology for virtual reality. So your games will be more interactive. We'll probably have new equipment that allows you to interact with the scenes a little more deliberately, rather than have the rules projected onto you, for example, like in Minecraft. Won't be too much longer after that we'll probably have more augmented reality type situations where you might walk into a store and hold your phone up at a product and see projected a lot more information about it, including reviews and environmental reviews and data that you think might be important to you. And then beyond that, with the possibility of having the mind connected directly to the system with artificial intelligence, you won't be surfing the internet, you will be the internet. You will actually be able to access information directly in real time, so you'll have to spend more of your time evaluating the value of that information rather than just having the content. For example, in education, think of, instead of going and reading about the Battle of Gettysburg, you're actually a participant in it.
Right.
And you can actually walk up to somebody who's in the battle, say, figuratively tap them on the shoulder, bring them out, and ask them why they're there, and have a real conversation with them, you know, and find out about their personal history and things. We have a lot of that information out there. It just can't be contained in a textbook.
Right. You know, there's a lot of, I had this friend, Keith, and he was from Delaware. We met in Arizona. I was from Redding, a small town, a very white town. And Keith ends up being my roommate and best friend down there, and he was black. And so it was an eye-opener to me to be connected to a culture that I had never been connected to. And he used to have this saying that he would say that he was kind of joking about how the world will never be a happy place until everybody's beige, but this would actually create situations where you literally could walk a mile in somebody else's shoes and get to know what it felt like to be somebody else, or even as a kid to be bullied, or any of these. A lot of these social things that we consider problems now, we could actually all have experienced before we were adults.
Right, and a lot of people are actually starting to use virtual reality as a role-playing situation to overcome their fears. Sponsor of Vet Life is using it to help veterans with PTSD overcome or at least control better their PTSD reactions. For example, if they walk into Walmart and something falls from a shelf and makes a large bang,
right?
They know how to handle it.
Like a safe place for immersion therapy.
Right.
Exactly. Yeah. They're actually using Second Life for that, but it's a role-playing idea that makes a lot of sense to me. I've supported them for several years.
That's cool.
Yeah, that's really interesting. It's one of those things where we all think we have a pretty good grasp on it. I play Pokemon Go. I know what I'm talking about. But you really don't have a good grasp on what it could be and where it's going. Yeah. All right, we're coming up on another break here. You're listening to Myron Curtis. We're talking about virtual realities and where they're going in the future. And of course, Myron, when I come back, I got to ask you the thing that I'd love to ask people, and that is there anything we should be worried about? Is there anything scary going on here? You're listening to Radio Wasteland with Myron Curtis. Come on back.
Find all our shows and archives by visiting Radio Wasteland at radiowasteland.us.
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. You're listening to our guest Myron Curtis as we're talking about virtual reality. Okay, so, ultimately, we're a conspiracy, mystery, futurism show, and we want the freaky stuff. Do you think there's anything concerning going on here that we need to be careful of as we move forward with virtual reality and augmented reality?
Quite a bit, actually. Most people are going to be concerned about their loss of privacy, which will happen, especially if we do have this brain-computer interface that Elon Musk is supposedly developing. But the reality is we haven't had any privacy for probably decades.
Yeah.
What I'm concerned about more than anything else is the people who either cannot or will not adjust these technologies. They're going to be at a financial loss. And we aren't discussing at all, again, how to mitigate that situation to where they can, make a good living, even though they're not using virtual tools and virtual reality or augmented reality. It's going to be the same thing again, like when the computers were first brought on board and people lost their jobs to a computer. And then later on, people lost their jobs to robots. Right. And now they're losing their jobs to what I call digital beings, which would be artificial intelligence.
We're about to see a big issue with that one with the trucking industry.
Right.
Probably.
Exactly, yeah. And, I get a little cynical about it because I was always part of the group that was always telling people, hey, this is coming. You got to adjust for it. Go take classes, do something, maybe shift careers. And it was all, well, they'll never be able to replace me.
Right.
And what happened? But this is going to have the same effect, and probably even more so than people realize. For example, why have a building downtown Sacramento when you could have a virtual building somewhere in a virtual world that can be accessed anywhere from the world without having to worry about, having a parking lot, having security for your building, making sure there's restaurants around for your people to go eat at.
Right.
That's so all those businesses that supported you having that building in Sacramento are going to suffer unless they find a way to adjust. And nobody's preparing them for that, and they're not even aware what's happening.
Yeah, very much so. I'm already a part of this industry. I do online marketing, I was saying earlier, and I work from an office at home, and I communicate with all the same people every day, day in and day out, as though we're in the office, and but we're not. We're all in our respective homes doing one office's worth of work from our houses.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
Where it might help a little bit, though, is if we develop what I call telecommuting hubs a lot of people, and especially in rural America, don't have access to broadband. Mm-hmm. But almost every city has at least one location where there's enough broadband where people can come in and work remotely from, a location in town and have really a virtual office in cyberspace for the companies they're working for. And they could be working for multiple companies.
So do you think we're at the point here with our country and our industry, leaving politics out of it, where you feel that nationwide broadband should be accessible for everybody because of the way the future is going? It seems to me like maybe you would think that so that a future populace is ready to work in it.
Oh, definitely. I've been a part of broadband alliances up and down the state of California for years, up until my home in Paradise burned down. And even still, I stay in contact with those people and keep track of what's going on. Take this into consideration. South Korea, little old South Korea, has 2 gigabytes of broadband to every doorstep. Rural America, we're lucky to get dial-up.
Right, yeah.
And some of those copper wires that you get your dial-up over are so green to the core, it's a wonder you can even make a phone call through them.
Right, yeah. I'm wondering if they should be, if internet access should be considered like the highway or freeway system, that so much economy runs through it that you wouldn't want to mess with it.
Yeah.
But there seems to be a lot of back and forth. Seems to be a lot of back and forth politically on that stuff. But it seems to me that
I think Comcast doesn't love that idea, for example.
And I've talked to Comcast and I've talked to AT&T, and while they haven't directly answered my questions, and Verizon, I have always got the impression that they're waiting on some new technology that maybe I'm not aware of. And maybe it's the 5G, I don't know. But they're really dragging their feet for some reason. And the money that we have given them in the billions of dollars, they've used not to give access to rural America, but to actually improve their services in urban America.
Right, where they know the money's at.
Right.
Yeah.
But ironically, still 25% of people in urban areas can't afford their prices.
That's because they pay rent.
Right.
Yeah.
They actually try to make a living at minimum wage.
Right. They pay urban rent. Yeah.
Right.
Without a doubt. All right, Myron, we're coming up on the end of the show here. Where can people find out more about you, find out about your virtual worlds, and really sort of get connected here?
I'm on LinkedIn as Myron JC, and Twitter as Myron JC, and on Instagram as Myron JC. And they can always go to Virtual Worlds with an S, grid.com, and get information about my virtual world there. Let's see, and I also have MyronJC.com, which I really have to update.
Well, awesome. We have a few more minutes here, so I got one or two more questions here for you. When it comes to the connection to the brain, like you're talking about Elon Musk, this seems like a great step for an undeniable step for technology. Of course, we're going to go this way, but is one of the fears that they can put stuff into your brain that you don't want, like mind control stuff?
Yeah, you will be assimilated.
Right.
Great.
we will be the Borg, and hopefully there'll be an off switch.
Yeah.
But, not unless we decide that in advance and require it. From an industrial standpoint, the idea of a personal bot that goes out, earns money, then spends it at your company and has no choice might be kind of appealing.
Well, absolutely. I mean, that's kind of the draw for let's say Kara's generation here in a city might not be apt to buy a car unless they spent the extra money to buy the car and have the car go out and work for them. Basically you send your car out there to be your ride share that works for you and pay itself off drop you off at work and go to work for 8 hours.
So it kind of sounds like we have two options. We could create a post-scarcity paradise where no one has to work, where we're all taken care of by robots, or we could remorselessly grind the working class under our boot heels. So,
we'll do all the above.
Both would good ways to go.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
option A, option B.
May happen sooner than you think.
And a
I think it already is.
And I think, Myron, right there, I think you gave a very good answer, and that is, we'll do all of the above. I think that is
little
the
column
case.
A.
Yeah, that's right.
Right. You may actually have an alternate working somewhere in a company developing programs that you aren't actually being aware of because the mind-computer interface is actually using your brain for processing.
Right. All right. Well, thank you very much for being on the show. It was definitely enlightening. I learned all sorts of things that I didn't think I would have known. All right. You've been listening to Myron Curtis here on Radio Wasteland. It's been a good time, and always check us out.
He's trying to take a lot of new to account, but he better not flake or he gets spit down. Or it isn't, I'm the one who gets spit down, girl. Yeah, my God. I once sucked one over the moon, splashed down, that's it.
All right, welcome back to Radio Wasteland. We've been listening to our guest, Myron Curtis. It's one of those topics that I go into thinking that I have a good understanding of it, virtual reality, or a decent understanding of it.
Right.
And I never go in too confident anymore because I always learn some new stuff here, And I think the big fear that I would take out of this one is, how everybody's concerned about your privacy.
Sure.
And Facebook, and we're all, hey, we're just giving it away. We're giving it all away. You're giving everything to companies to market to you.
Right.
You're giving practically all of you. Virtual reality and augmented reality is going to create a world where you give the rest of you.
Yeah.
Where you literally are giving all of you complete access.
And that goes both ways.
Yeah, well, not necessarily. They have the money and the power and the control to close off the floodgates. I mean,
right. Well, in theory, you are accessing the internet through your mind because you're trying to get information.
Right.
But they're getting information from you too. That's what I meant.
But I mean, it's personal things. How often do you think about sex? Have you ever thought about killing yourself? It's like things like this.
Yeah.
Will have be able to be added to data and stuff like that. I don't know. It's
Yeah, I think long term, the best possible way this ends is that everyone's brain is connected to everyone else's brain, and we're just one organism, and we're all.
Yeah. Hopefully we hit a singularity that is positive like that, because
right,
we are moving towards some serious classist potential.
Right. I don't love a future where 99% of people are reduced to drones. That doesn't sound great.
Well, it depends on which percentage we're in, right?
I mean, yeah, if you're the 1%, but the only reason you would wind up in a future like that is because some people decided we would rather live like gods than, for everyone to have a life that is good.
Right.
But
I mean, we really
you would have to make that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. But, there is some serious Morlock and Eloy potential going on here.
Oh, yes.
And for those who have only seen the movie and haven't read the books, the Morlocks were not the bad guys. The Morlocks were the mutated, repressed proletariat or whatever,
Right.
And the pretty Eloy were the bad guys.
Yes.
In the movie, they flipped it around to try to...
Well, that's impossible, though, because the Eloy are beautiful.
Yeah, but they also ate them.
That's fair.
Yeah, so, it's bad on both sides.
Right.
The movie is actually really good, and I think they did a good job of that. But speaking of movies and shows, I rarely ever watch Black Mirror, but I just happened to watch one last night that had Anthony Mackie in it, and he and his good buddy. Have you seen this episode? Have you ever seen the show?
I've only ever seen the first episode and San Junipero.
Okay, so he and his friend start playing a video game that they like Jaguar Attackers Part 6 or something from when they were kids, and now it's like an augmented reality thing that they put into their heads, and they're both in there and they pick their fighter and they fight, and one of them's a dude and one of them's a woman. In real life they're both men, but they actually start having an affair in the game as one a woman and one a man.
Okay.
And they're both confused about if it's an affair or what it is, and they they actually, the one guy is sort of addicted to the situation, addicted to the virtual reality of it, and the other guy is thinking about it more in terms of his family and his marriage and stuff like that, and tries to meet up with the guy, and tries to say, okay, well, we need to try to make out to see if there's any real world stuff, and if there is, maybe I need to think about this differently. But if there's not, I just need to be done with all this because I got a family and I got some stuff. I don't know.
You're describing this in a sensational way, but I just hear this, and as a trans person, I'm like, yeah, that seems reasonable.
Well, I mean, he's basically cheating on his wife.
Well, yeah,
that's cool.
I meant the guy is a woman in cyberspace. Like, yeah, I can see that.
Yes, yeah, but the guy who was a woman in cyberspace was not conveyed to us that he had any desire to be a woman.
Fair enough.
That he was physically fine with who he was, but
that's how it starts. Closeted dysphoria. I'm not even joking.
No, I know. Yeah. No, I'm not coming down on that. Believe me, I am in no way an expert on the topic. But it was an interesting thing of what virtual reality could do, could present to people. Mm-hmm. That this person who you've known all your life, you see them online and you view them as somebody entirely different, even though that the brain behind this mouth and body is the person that you know.
Yeah, in a way, I think that's already happening. Like, I knew someone in high school who was very strange, but online you couldn't tell. So it was this weird situation where, like, on Facebook he was a very normal person, but in real life he was a maniac. And so it's like, okay, that's it's an interesting dichotomy. Like, I like Facebook you.
Yeah, well, I mean, that's refreshing. Normally in real life they're totally normal people, and online they're a white nationalist.
That is true.
Or there's some sort of trolling hate bot.
This was just a reversed version of that.
Right? Yeah. Yeah. That's interesting. But I definitely have that attitude when it comes to online and stuff like that. I don't. I don't like to have personal conversations with people online. It's like if we're going to do it online, it might as well be public, or it's about business. Mm-hmm. And if you want to have a personal conversation, you can call me on the phone. And if you don't have my phone number, there's a reason, because I don't want to have a personal phone call.
That's fair. Yeah.
Yeah. But I'll get people like trying to chat with me. I'm like, I don't know. I'm not ready for this. I'm not ready for, somebody from way back, bros from way back going, hey, what's up, bro? And I'm just all like, I don't have Messenger.
Yeah, I'm not really into that. I do hang out with people online, but it's like, more people with shared interests anonymously.
Yeah.
Like, yeah.
Well, I do too. I mean, I hang out with you, and that's a sort of work fun thing. But even on Para-X in the chat room. But again, it's public.
Yeah.
That's kind of the distinction that I'm making. And I think that kind of fits a lot of stuff in the news, like don't do or say anything online that you wouldn't want to be public.
Right. Yeah.
And
the human hack is the easiest way to get access to a lot of systems.
That's true. All right, you're listening to Radio Wasteland. Come on back and find out what we got going on next. welcome back to Radio Wasteland. Next week we have on Mac Maloney. Mac Maloney is a researcher and author. Like a lot of these guys, he covers a lot of things, but military, alien military, and it looks like possibly some post-Nazi stuff.
That was a very ambiguous description. I don't...
Okay.
Is he describing, like, armies of Nazi aliens? What is happening here?
Well, that's what we're going to have to find out, on his site and in his stuff. There's references to Odessa.
Okay.
Do you know what Odessa is? Project Odessa?
I was going to say a town in Texas, but Project Odessa, no. I have
okay,
no idea
so
what that
Project
is.
Odessa, from my understanding here, was basically Nazis after World War II going to Argentina and being relocated to Argentina. And supposedly there's this thing where Hitler was alive in Argentina and running a hotel.
Yeah, that sounds reasonable.
Totally.
That sounds like the thing that happened.
Well, to be fair, I'm only referencing one of his many books here. So I'm not saying that's what he writes about. He has all sorts of just awesome topics about, book here, Storm Over Saturn, lots of fiction books, and then lots of Military X-Files Radio. He has a podcast. So he just seems to be like one of those guys that's across the board and has all sorts of goodness for us to dig through.
The Renaissance man of fringe beliefs.
And that's what I love, because that's who I kind of
That's what you want to be.
It is what I want to be. I'm not succeeding at it.
He even has a cool name, Mac Maloney.
Yeah, totally. What's
that's
up
like
with
that's like some kind of Philip Marlowe style name. Like you would name a detective that in a
I don't know. I'm
novel.
personally of the opinion that if your name is alliterated, it's your secret identity. And
that's a good point. You were written by Stan Lee,
right,
and you are about to be bitten by a radioactive horse.
Senator Dick Durbin, probably some kind of superhero.
Sure.
You ever see this guy?
I think
maybe not that one.
Yeah, I have a hard time.
Chris Christie.
That.
Chris Christie might be a superhero.
Try again.
What do you think his power is?
I can't answer that without making a fat joke, which is...
Oh, that's terrible.
I know.
You could come down on bridges, taking over beaches, kicking out families. There's all sorts of stuff.
I'm sorry. My mind is bad and prejudiced, so I can't help you.
All right, so next time we got Renaissance man Mac Maloney to talk about fringe excitement and conspiracies across the board here on Radio Wasteland. So,
Heck yeah.
come on back for that.